Welcome back to another episode of the Capes and Tights podcast right here on capesandtights.com. I'm your host, Justin Soderberg. Paul Eaton, comic book retailer and owner of Galactic Comics and Collectibles, returns to the Capes and Tights podcast once more to talk a comic book movie. This episode features the 1978 Doctor Strange film, a little known film that was a made for TV movie that was a backdoor style pilot that was spearheaded by Stan Lee in 1978 to try to make a TV show on CBS. So this movie is available only that I've seen on the internet and random websites and eBay, available on DVD and Blu-ray. So check that out on there. Not available for streaming, and I don't think it's available on YouTube. But this is the 1978 Doctor Strange movie with Paul Eaton of Galactic Comics and Collectibles talking about the movie. Before you go listen, though, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Twitter, as well as rate, review, subscribe, all those things over at Apple and Spotify and all your major podcasting platforms, as well as you can also view the video over on our YouTube channel, as well as capesandtights.com. So this is Paul Eaton talking Doctor Strange from 1978. Enjoy, everyone. Welcome to the Sanctum Sanctorum. Is that what it's called? I don't know.
Yeah.
Now I'm just second guessing myself. I'm like,
We're
oh, it's gonna be so cool.
We're in the inner sanctum.
Welcome back, Paul. Like, this is like
Hey.
we're getting in a regular groove here now. Like, this is gonna be
Right?
good.
Yeah, I like it.
Not
we
that
have plans.
not that we're like, watching, award-winning movies here, but I will say, start right off the bat, I'm gonna say I like this movie. I will say I like this movie. I'm not like
I've been trying to figure out how to review this movie. I don't even know what the hell to say about it.
well, so we're here to talk about Doctor Strange from 1978, which, as you know, we've had this conversation internally,
Yeah.
is you didn't know and I didn't know this even existed.
No,
I was
this
doing
existed.
something for the website where I was like, I think I Googled like comic book adapted movies or something along those lines. And
Right.
there's a Wikipedia page from Marvel and there's a Wikipedia page for DC. And then there's like all the imprints and in the non big two comic book movies and things like that. And this came up on it. And I was like, Doctor Strange in 1978. And I would have second guessed myself, Paul, if it was just like Googled it and found it. Then I would have been like, oh, say someone just called someone used the name and it's not an actual Marvel.
This is like a romance movie about a doctor or something or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or a bad horror.
But because it was on this list, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do some research. And it's legit. It's a Doctor Strange movie from 1978. It was released on September 6th, 1978 on CBS. It was a TV movie, and doing some research on it was spearheaded by Stan Lee as another one of those backdoor pilot things that we've done with like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and
Generation
even
X.
Generation X, which was like, let's make a feature length style double episode of a TV show, and then make it a pilot and see if it does well. And if it does well, then after watching Generation X and then watching this, I'm like, both of these I would have watched if they're like in 1978. If they had a TV show series on this, I would have watched this show. It would have been good.
As a child, like, I know that I watched reruns of the Incredible Hulk that was on at this time, and I guess that was one of the things. They had Incredible Hulk, they had Amazing Spider-Man, which Stan Lee said was just awful. Like, I vaguely recall that Spider-Man. I'd kind of like to go watch Hulk now.
Yeah.
And then watch Hulk comparative to this. This wasn't bad. It was entertaining. One of the things that I thought was great about this was I feel like they wrote the script around what they could plausibly do. So, like, the special effects obviously aren't good. It's 1978, but they aren't horrible, and they were well thought out. They didn't try to make stuff that wasn't going to really work.
Correct.
Like, most of it works. The devil that's like the villain in it is pretty weird.
It's like a Muppet.
They did a good job of like
it's a creepy Muppet. It looks like
it's definitely like a Muppet or something. But it's way in the background. It has these glowing eyes, and there's no like close-ups of it. The very few like practical effects in it, they did a good job of like not focusing on, so that I felt like it wasn't so bad. Like there was the horseman that was riding in it. That was pretty well done. And there's another scene where apparently like a demon comes out from the fireplace, and you only see it in a window. That looked really bad.
Yeah.
But you don't see it, and you don't see it up close, so it's like, all right, well. So that was one of my thoughts on this show, movie, whatever, was they at least did a really good job with a character that is very hard, I would think, to do, especially in this era of effects. They did a good job of not like trying to overdo this.
You're right. And part of me, when I went into it, I was like, how are they going to make this? And that's basically, so hindsight's
thought they did
2020, Paul, right? Like, right, hindsight's 2020 when you
Yeah.
live, when we're in the life that we're in now, we see the things they can do now. I was just mentioning to Taylor last night, Nova had, was it Moana on or something like that? And I'm like, Moana as a person and the Maui as a person in these movies looks like an animated, obviously, thing. Like,
Right.
they're cartoonistic. They have this like exaggerated features and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But when you look at the water in the background and some of the grass and stuff like that, I'm
Looks
like,
real.
if you just took a still image of that, you'd be like, oh, that's real water. Like that's real. It's legit. And so the technology has come so far to be able to do that. It's fascinating. And then I think back, I'm like, why did they decide to make this movie in 1978 without the special effects? And I'm like, wait, in 1978, they didn't know the special effects were going to get this good. We didn't know. We don't know what it's going to look like 30, 40 years from now, and so on and so forth. So they're like, might as well make it if we can. And the comic book relation to Stephen Strange and Doctor Strange is trippiness, right? There's like this acid trip style to it. And so they did that with like the funnel. There was like a funnel thing where he's like going like, woo.
Where he's going through or going through the astral plane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's basically
honestly,
all
it didn't
his
look bad, like really.
All his what you see in this, like obviously there's some like mind stuff that you don't need visuals for. You just say the whole Luke Skywalker or whatever, Obi-Wan Kenobi,
you wave your
shall
hand.
pass. And then that stuff, that doesn't need special effects. So in that sense, they kind of avoided it in a way that was good. And when they needed to use it, they used it. And if you think about in the hour and a half or so of this movie, there's only maybe 2 times that it's not okay, it's all bad. Like there's 2 times that it's really bad. And other than that, it's like they just avoided it, like, which is
they did a really good job writing around it.
Yeah.
And I like this, like the so they had like the music, which occasionally was cheesy, but overall was all right. And they did a good job, I thought, of using music and using this like high pitched sound to like show you that magic was being used. The villain there, so there's the woman that's also the I guess a main villain. She's working for this demon.
Yeah, she's is that Morgan? Is that Morgan le Fay? Is the main person, which is funny actually. Wait, mentioning that really quickly before you go on your pause there for a second, is it seems like it's more about her than it is about Stephen Strange, though. That's what I will say. It seems like it's a her movie, and that Stephen Strange is like a secondary character, which is really weird. But
and it was more about the ancient one too, I thought.
Yes.
Like there's more of him and more of Morgan, and there isn't really all that much of Doctor Strange. Most of what you see of Doctor Strange is him as a doctor, working in the hospital.
Which would make sense if this is going to be a season. If it's going to be multiple seasons, you don't want to jump into everything at once.
We're going to build. The plan was to build up from this, and that was one of the reviews I read about, was that they felt that it was more of watching a medical drama for the first like hour before you ever really get to anything, because it's just Stephen hanging out in the hospital mostly. But they use like that eerie high pitched sound every time that Morgan was using her powers to like manipulate people or creatures, and you could see her like watching a cat. And then, you see the cat run across, and then she lets go of it when she's like, oh, I can't use this. And she did the same thing with people. And like, they did a good job of stuff like that. So I felt like for what they had for ability, they did a really good job of writing around it. But yeah, there wasn't really a lot of Doctor Strange in it to speak of.
No, there wasn't. And so there's like a complaint, not a complaint, but like a thing is like, okay, so they had to use the 1970s, 1980s mustache. They couldn't, like, it was the weirdest thing. I'm like, you can't just put a goatee. He's a goatee guy. Right. Like, that's what he is. He's a goatee dude. And you have him wearing like the porn stash, which is like just what the 1980s, 70s and 80s actors had, were this porn stash. And so like they had that, which is okay, but he doesn't look bad. Like, it's like definitely not a bad casting for Doctor Strange, in my opinion. Like,
not really.
They did change him from being a medical doctor to a psychiatrist, right? And then, so like there's that, but part of me goes, maybe it's a little cheaper to make him a psychiatrist because it's just people sitting in a room. Whereas a medical doctor, you have to do surgeries and all this other stuff to it. And so there's that aspect of it. But other than that, like, they did a pretty good job doing this. The funny thing is, right off the bat, when they started playing the credits, first of all, one of my biggest pet peeves of movies that were made back in the day, I'm using hand quotation for anybody who's listening, is doing pre-roll credits with music and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like the hour and a half movie is the first 15 minutes is just showing the credits with music and
Yep.
stuff like that in it. Like the newer movies where it's like show it while you're doing something. Someone's
Yeah.
doing something at the beginning of the movie and the credits show up on the screen and in between scenes and so on and so forth. But it's like bong and it starts playing this creepy music. I'm like, oh, they're jumping right into this right here. Here we go. It's eerie, like sinister red text comes up and all that stuff. But yeah, like for 1978, I'm thinking to myself, like it hangs, it's say it right now, it's better than Howard the Duck turned out.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Oh God, yeah. Really, like Howard the Duck brings in the like the interdimensional demon at the end that's like definitely clay
Mhm.
and not even really good looking clay. It does not look good at all. Honestly, the effects in a 1978 made for TV movie were better. And it was basic stuff like the guy's hand glows, you
Yeah.
know, and I mean they had, you know, if you look at stuff from like Star Wars, it's not really up to Star Wars effects, but it's not far off from it.
No.
When you're considering that this was a TV movie and it said it had an ample budget. I don't know what it,
Yeah, I don't know. I
they
couldn't
didn't say
figure
what it
that
was, and I don't
out.
know what ample is, but they spent enough apparently.
It's weird because because there wasn't ever a release, kind of like, you know, with Generation X and with like Agent of Shield and Nick Fury, those at least had
Yeah.
some like sort of like limited release. That the budget on this is actually not even like you can't just I probably could find it somewhere somehow.
Right.
But
Right.
the ample budget part of it is, you know,
They
the
obviously
most they
spent,
get.
I would say, based on what I read about them and their ample budget, is that they spent more, far more than they got in return, probably.
Mhm.
Like they invested in it, and the investment shows. Like it's not bad. The
No,
writing is okay. It's not amazing, but like you said, I mean, it
it's
kept
definitely
me interested.
watchable, and that's the thing. And
Yeah.
you know, that's the biggest thing to me. Did you notice when he's in his office towards the beginning and he's waiting for something and he picks up a comic book? It's a
Yes.
Marvel comic
Yeah.
book.
Yeah. He walks in. He picks up a Marvel. Wasn't it like
Was it Incredible Hulk?
maybe or Strange Tales or
Yeah,
something?
something. It might have been Strange Tales, but it was
Yeah.
kind of cool. I thought that was an like
Yeah. I thought that was
what you'd see almost in nowadays movies compared to like they didn't do that Easter eggish kind of more stuff back in the
Yeah.
1970s. That it was kind of cool to see the that he
Picks it
picked up
up.
an
He comes through it.
actual
And he throws it back on the
yeah.
bookshelf. Yeah. I thought that was cool. Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, compared to other, I'm just looking. I didn't realize this till afterwards. I was like, oh, let me look up like top grossing movies in 1978 and so on and so forth. Grease was the number one movie in 1978. National Lampoon's Animal House, Superman. So I mean, okay, in comparison to Superman, obviously Superman was much better than this movie. But like,
Right.
if they would have released it in theaters, I think it would have at least done something. I mean, Superman did 134 million dollars. I don't think it would have done 134 million dollars.
No.
But
Well, I mean, Superman 2 is like mainstream known name.
yeah,
Doctor Strange is not, especially back then.
yeah.
I feel like it was kind of a like weird pick to do Doctor Strange. Like
So I'm trying to figure out like again,
I don't remember the comics ever being that big back in the late 70s, early 80s.
So it probably has something to do with the fact that he was available to do something with because of the fact that he was an available character that wasn't what's it called option to someone else or sold to someone else or whatever. The other thing is like the whole what I mentioned about the whole like you can potentially do Doctor Strange's story without as much visual effects because he does a lot of magic and things like that. That you
what
don't
an Iron Man would have looked
need.
like then.
Yeah, so that's like that, and that's part of the reason why they said why it was hard to do Spider-Man because like the only way they really can get him to like look like he's climbing up walls is to the whole flat, you know, he's crawling on the floor, making it look like he's actually climbing on walls. Superman flying, honestly, in Superman 1 from 1978 isn't bad in my opinion. I do think that movie actually does a pretty good job showing him flying. He doesn't fly like you'd see him in like what's going to come up in James Gunn's movie. You're going to see him fly through buildings and things like that. It's basically like, okay, you know, Clark Kent's going to change into Superman and fly, and he's just like, you know, like, oh yeah, here you go, I'm flying, cool, and then he lands, but it looks like he's
definitely
flying.
a lot of green screen of him just like runs out going along.
But at least he looks like he's flying, you know, to the point. So I think that's part of why they do Doctor Strange is the fact that he can do like same thing with Agent of Shield, with you know, Nick Fury, Agent of Shield. It's a character you can do without doing a lot more
character.
extra.
Yeah, I mean, trying to do Fantastic Four, we saw how that turned out.
Yeah, and on a scale of the superheroes that are out there that have special effects needed abilities,
makes sense.
this is in the. I think this would be in those characters of that. The lowest grossing movie of 1978 was called Interiors. Wait, that's from UAE. The United States is American Hot Wax. Never heard of it. 11 million. It could have, I mean, It would have made some money, I think. I don't think that it's
I'm
like,
sure people probably would have gone and seen it. People probably would have gone and seen it not knowing what it was for the sake of it. Just like, oh, let's
honestly,
go
though,
see that. You know, they
there's
don't necessarily know
40,
maybe it's a Marvel superhero movie, but they're like, oh, we'll go see it. I
there's
mean, back then that
43
was your
million,
thing. You went to the movies.
43 million, 43 movies released in 1978 in theaters, according to the numbers.com. And the lowest one I know is Damien, or at least just know of, Omen 2. It's a sequel to Omen. That's was $24 million. The Lord of the Rings, I think the animated one, yeah, was 1978 as well as $27 million. But your top movies are Grease, National Lampoon's Animal House, Superman, Every Which Way But Loose, Jaws 2, Heaven Can Wait, Hooper, The Deer Hunter. Halloween was number 9 at $47 million.
Oh wow.
Up in Smoke, Revenge of the Pink Panther,
Oh dear lord.
House Calls, Lord of the Rings. So it wasn't like a crazy like a movie. 1978 isn't a movie like out of any years that are
Not a
around
big
that
movie
probably
year.
is a better. We would have been a top 10 movie of the year. But
It would have been on the list for
yeah,
sure.
and again, this is like what had the best script, which had the cheapest to make, yada yada yada. Might have been on Stan Lee's like, I just want something from Marvel made into a TV show or a movie.
Right.
Oh, you want Doctor Strange? Cool, we'll do Doctor Strange. And I feel like that's what happened. He's like, I will put anything on TV to get this ball rolling, and it probably was things like Doctor Strange, Generation X. Those ones were like, let's get something on TV. And do something that's at least somewhat cheap, and that's what Doctor Strange probably fell into that category, in my opinion. I don't know for sure, but I don't.
Did
I'm
you
not on an
see?
astral plane with Stan Lee to find out what happened. But
Did you see what I think it was Stan Lee said one of the reasons he felt it flopped in the Nielsen rating and did not get syndicated by CBS was because it went opposite Roots. Roots was playing on ABC the same time this was playing. And they're
that's
like,
also
that's why.
like
And
finding
it's
excuses for
funny to
why your
think
thing
back then, like
failed.
that was how it was done. You had the Nielsen rating of
Yep.
who's watching what, and that's what determines kind of what gets picked up and doesn't.
I just closed out of my thing, but it's also like when you have a character, what a guy like Stan Lee is trying to protect his image, so he's like, what can I come up with for a reason why this didn't do well?
I gotta
And by
have an
saying,
excuse.
got to have an excuse and got to say that this is like what's going on, and that's probably what happened more along the lines of than it actually had. I mean, again, it's a character that no one really, like, say, quote unquote, cares about. Like, it's not a character that people are like clamoring. I mean, when Iron Man came out though in 2008, people weren't clamoring for an Iron Man movie. So
Right.
TV movies were TV movies handled differently in 1978. I mean, I was -8 at the time, so I don't know for sure. But like
Yeah, I was
in the
thinking of four.
70s, where they like when you see a movie made for TV nowadays, you're like, oh, it could be good though, because like you have movies that go direct streaming, you have movies
Yeah.
that go direct to whatever. But I mean, is that the same as made for TV though? I don't think so. I mean,
I
I
mean,
would think that
in some respects, maybe it kind of is. I guess that's an interesting question, right? Because nowadays, if somebody gets, direct to a streaming service, a Netflix or Hulu, made for a movie, you're like, oh, that could still be like really good,
yeah,
and there's like cult following for it. And it's almost like skipping the theater now. The theater doesn't matter as much.
I'm just
Back then,
wondering
I
is
wonder
actually
if like was that or was it more of like oh, this is gonna be a downplayed, like,
when
oh, it
you hear
wasn't
about
good
direct to
enough for
DVD.
the theater
Direct to
type
DVD or
thing.
direct to TV, a lot of times to a lot of people, I think seems is like a lower thing, which it is because obviously the budgets aren't there, the actors and
Yeah.
actresses usually aren't there, that you can get into feature film. But and I think that nowadays the only bad thing that happens when you see a movie go from like being released or being talked about being released in the theaters and then only getting released on Amazon or Netflix or Hulu or whatever is that it feels like it's gone backwards because you were going to make these millions of dollars. Now you're not going to make anything more than just
Right.
subscriptions. And that's what it is. But if like I see when Batgirl was going to come out just on HBO, I wasn't like, oh, this movie's going to suck. I was like,
Right.
we're just interested in seeing this because HBO is a avenue to release a movie nowadays, and they put the money behind these things to make them. Whereas back then, it was probably like $2 million to make this movie when Superman's budget was probably like $20 million or something like that.
Right.
I actually don't know what
I
Superman's
know
budget is.
this was another one I thought too. The sets that were supposed to be comic book
Yeah,
were really pretty bad.
yeah, yes,
Why
exactly.
on earth did the inside of the sanctum look the way it did? The weird like unfinished stucco
Bro,
everywhere, like this weird like it was like walking into a cave, sort of like you
yeah,
you see in the new Doctor Strange movies, and like it looks like a crazy
House.
mansion, old
Yeah.
house, old mansion in New York City. And in this era, they're like, no, let's make it look like you walk inside a cave, sort of. And
So
everything was just super funky.
I watched this in two parts. Technically, I watched a little bit of it, and then I got distracted and had to do something else, and went back to watching
Yeah,
it. And
same.
when I this time between it and when I saw the two different times of it in this sanctorum, is that was it trying to imply that you walked through the house and you actually went somewhere else? Like, was it trying to imply that you the front door to Bleecker Street was actually you opening a door and you're in now at some place in Asia? That you're actually like not actually like you're in some sort of temple, and
I
that's why it
almost,
looked like that's like you're almost teleporting.
if
Because
it
when you
was,
walk through the door at one point,
yeah,
he does look like he's like, "Where am I?" Like he almost looks like he's lost.
confused. Yeah. I think, I almost think it was a little bit of, if this was intended, and it wasn't
Yeah,
just like a low budget opportunity here to save money, was that they wanted to give you the feel of this isn't normal. Like,
yeah.
this is magical now. Like, okay, you saw him on the
Yeah,
street, and the street looked like the street. So now he's gone here. It doesn't just look like he's in a house. He's in somewhere else. Like, and the one of the final big epic fight scenes where he's fighting in the astral plane that presumably is like hell or something was relatively cheesy looking, but I mean, it is what it is.
yes. Well, just it would have been cheaper to
For all
make a
of you
house,
out
wouldn't it?
there, it
Wouldn't it have
is
been
what it
cheaper just to use a house than it is to make that set? Like that
You would
set probably
think
took a bunch of
so.
the budget. But
Yeah,
you're
you would
right.
think so.
In Doctor Strange with Benedict Cumberbatch, more recently, you have the ability to do the whole like when he was with Thor, and
Mm,
Thor like has a beer mug just appear in his thing. They move from room to room without knowing and all that stuff. That was easy to make it seem like the house is magic because of the
right.
fact they had the special effects and the ability to do that. Back in
Loki falling
1978,
over and over and over
in
again.
1978, they wouldn't have been able to do this.
Yeah, I
Like, we
couldn't do any of that
can't
stuff.
do that. So let's do something else to make it look like this is a fantastical, magical place, and that's making it
Right.
look like it. And the funny thing is, I always laugh because the same thing about Star Wars, which we'll get into when we eventually review Star Wars together, is it's in the future, in space, yet somehow in the past. There's that
Right.
whole talk that like it's so much. It looks like it's such an advanced society, but yet people are like in like caves living and
Right.
like they have light swords, but they live in a cave. Like, there's this whole thing. So like these guys are magical, but yet they look like they live in a old stucco cave place that they don't actually
Yeah.
have. Like, if we were magical right now, we'd have like mansions in front of it. We're using our powers, and
Yeah,
they're in this like
it's like Doctor Who with the TARDIS where you go in and it's just endless, right? It's
yes,
huge, even though it looks small on the outside. And instead he's like, so we should probably clean this place up sometime.
yeah.
At least maybe sand down the walls. Try to get this
There's
a
a
little
leak
bit.
over there. It's
Just
okay.
a
Don't
fresh,
worry about
little
that.
paint would go a long way here.
Well, isn't
Yeah,
there?
instead he
Is
chooses to
it
live like this.
in Secret Wars, New Avengers? There's a scene where they're hiding during the Civil War part. They're hiding in the sanctuary in their Doctor Strange is using the ability to hide them. Like he's
Mm,
using like the people walking the house to this like abandoned house when really they're actually in this house, but he's using this ability to like put this
yeah, like
thought in people's
mask it all.
minds. Yeah, that mask that they're not actually there, and they're just diving right into the idea that we'd like to live in a cave. Save on the heating bill in the wintertime because the
Yeah.
rocks get warm with the sun, and save on the cooling bill in the summertime because it keeps the cold air
All
inside.
adds
It's
up. Probably the
it's
hardest
all
part was
about
getting all of
budget.
that into the place in New York. You know,
they're,
like
they're no, they're just thinking, they're not making a bunch of money. They're magic. They're not trying to
right.
abuse their powers. They're just like, let's save on some money here. Let's just,
They're wizards here. We gotta, yeah, you gotta. Wizarding doesn't make coin, dude.
no, we gotta figure this out. I mean, wizarding is second to comic book store owner, right? No making no money.
Pretty close.
But yeah, so that stuff I think was kind of funny. The sets, obviously, the doctor's office in senses. Part of me goes like, is this like a set that they put like a curtain up and that made it
Right.
look like they were in a doctor's office? And yeah, there was this whole, I don't know. I liked him. His name is Peter Hooten, Hooten.
Yeah.
He was really not really much to me. I mentioned to you in the store, he was in Inglourious Bastards in 1978, the original one, not the reboot that was done more recently with Brad Pitt and so on. So there's that to his name. But really, the bigger person is Jessica Walter, the person who played Morgan Le Fay, the I guess main character, if you actually boil it down in
Feels
this
like it,
movie.
yeah. I'd say it's between
Was
her and the
the
ancient
ancient one,
one.
yeah,
Honestly, probably the I don't know, the love interest or whatever. She
yeah,
almost has as much time on camera. And
yeah.
following her, as you do following Doctor Strange.
And another pet peeve of mine and things like this. And again, I think there was a lot of trying to be shoved into this to try to make it into a movie or to a TV show and so on and so forth. That this is a movie itself, maybe would have been structured a little bit differently and written a little bit differently. But he falls for this woman like super fast. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like this whole thing, like in an hour and a half movie, you see this like random person coming in and I'm like, just every beautiful woman that comes into his doctor's office. First of all, you're a psychiatrist, so it's probably not the best idea to just fall in love with women that come into your office.
Yeah, he mentions that. He does mention that.
But I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, he does.
According to the ancient one, they have a bond.
Yes,
they have a bond.
And you could write that off as being like, okay, it's just magic. You don't worry about it. But yeah, she was in it. It seemed like Doctor Strange was a secondary character. Yes, but if you thought long term, as in this being a series of TV show, then maybe okay, he was less, in the first episode or two, and then he became slowly, and then by the end of the season, it's just Doctor Strange, and like the Ancient One's barely even seen, and obviously Dylan is the background, and so on and so forth. But
the Ancient One pops up here or there to lend advice or whatever,
but
and
not really
follows
be the main
a lot
character.
More Strange and Wong going around doing stuff. Which Wong was well casted.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, not as good as the fact that the guy who plays him now is actually named Wong.
Right.
That's, he was born for the role. But Jessica Walter was the Morgan Le Fay, which is, like I said, the pseudo main character. And people will know her. And the funny thing is, I didn't realize this. I was like researching the movie and so on and so forth, getting ready to watch it. And she is in Arrested Development. She's the mom in Arrested Development, the comedy show that was phenomenal. It came out, I think it was a Showtime. They had like 3 or 4 seasons of that, which was phenomenal. And she passed away, sadly passed away in 2021. So she didn't get to actually listen to this episode of us praise her acting skills. But she was also Fran Sinclair in the 1990s Dinosaurs TV show. Dinosaurs. Yes, I said it. She is Fran Sinclair, as well as also she was a regular on Archer. Anybody who's a fan of the animated TV series Archer, she was a regular character on that as well. So she actually went on to do stuff past this stuff. Peter Hooten, again, I don't know what else. Like, I didn't really look too far into it, but it didn't seem like anybody else in this movie really did.
Same thing. The love interest I saw went on to play in some horror things here and there, and not really much of anything.
Which is nothing because well, it is something to specific.
It's more than I've been in. However,
I'm surprised they haven't been asked to come to a specific location in Maine to sign autographs. She was great though. The Jessica Walter, she was pretty good as the character.
Yeah.
I tell you right now, I feel like we weirdly seem to focus on this a lot. It's like the nudity and all that. So there isn't any nudity in this. Everybody just let you know, you're all good there. It's made for TV. But she was very sexualized compared to what I've seen her in. Like, I'm watching, obviously the mom she's the voice of the mom on Dinosaurs, and she's on a TV show as an older mom in Arrested Development. I'm thinking like in this thing, she's like the first time you see her, she's got like her bosoms out, hanging out, like just there, and I'm like, okay, they're sexualizing her. They're making her the sexy. She's character.
Always not always. Every time she's on the astral plane, I guess she's always in this like sort of skimpier outfit, and she's obsessed with being young, right? She's like, you find out she's actually like, I don't know, hundreds of years old or whatever, and she's obsessed with her youth and her looks and all that. So I guess it adds up. Like,
she was 1978. She was 37.
Yeah.
And this movie came out. So, but I'm saying, I don't know. Again, I didn't do enough research and I didn't live in the 70s. Maybe she was at that time that like heartthrob,
big heartthrob, or
like the kind of person.
Was she on into other stuff back then?
I didn't look. I just a lot of times, like when I do graphics for
she could have been like a model or something too, or whatever. Like
when I'm researching graphics to do stuff for like conventions and things like that, a lot of times I look at their like what they've been known for on IMDb. On the right side, it says the number of episodes they were in when it's a TV show. And if it's one episode, 178 episodes, a lot of times I focus on that because that's what they should be known for more than something they were only on one episode. And so when I was doing this too, I was like, oh, let me write these things down. I went through and looked at how many episodes she's been on, and it was Arrested Development, Dinosaurs, and Archer. But we can look it up. Jessica Walter is her name. It sounds like she should play like other characters in the movie. Jessica Walter. But yeah, so those weren't bad. I don't think the casting was horrible. I think there was no one like Doctor Strange didn't like jump out at me like, oh my god, this guy's amazing. But he kind of fit the bill. I just wish he had a goatee. That's it.
Kind of looked like him. He was okay. Costuming when he first gets the costume that I guess is supposed to be like the iconic Doctor Strange of that era. It's hokey looking, but it's not bad. And I was thinking what Doctor Strange looked like in the 70s, early 80s, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that flips the bill. And then it was weird because at the end of it, he becomes he becomes a sorcerer supreme or whatever. And the ancient one gives him his powers or, something of this whole, and he ends up this weird purple suit with this big white, like, I don't know what this was, like a star or something on. That was a serious weird choice. Like, we went from, okay, that looks comic book accurate, to what the hell is he wearing?
Well, I feel like it's that whole statement I make, and most of the time we talk about these TV show adaptations of things, it's like someone trying to put their own stamp on things. Like everything else was like, okay, it's comic booky, accurate-y kind of thing. So that's the set designer was like, we're gonna make it look like they're in a cave. Don't worry. And then the costume designer was like, okay, fine, you can have this hokey looking, comic book accurate costume he's wearing, but don't worry, I've got something for you. And then
I've got what superheroes should look like.
Yes. And so I think that was probably some of it. Like someone trying to put their own stamp on something. Little do we know, Stan Lee was the one that was like, we should put this purple suit on him.
You couldn't have the hero in black or something. Yeah. Like, oh, he's a good guy. So like, I mean, because Batman was wearing gray and blue back then. Yeah. It wasn't like, but because originally he's in hell, so he's in the black and he has the gold like around his waist and he has this ridiculous necklace on. But it at least looked like Doctor Strange.
Yeah. And
then and I'm like, okay, we have some comic accuracy. And then when he ends up in this purple, weird, giant, I don't know what the hell that was. That was.
But a lot of times you hear that the reason why they don't use comic book accurate things is because the translation from like drawing someone on a page to actually putting them in a costume is a lot different. And so like, obviously, if Captain Marvel wore what she wore in the comic books on TV, they might have actually sold a lot more tickets to the movie because she would have been basically naked. And
Ms. Marvel with the big boots.
Yeah,
I love in the comics where she's in her closet and she's like, how did I ever fight in these things? Like, why was I wearing these?
And so like there is that translation, but when you have Doctor Strange in a more comic book accurate outfit,
doesn't always look.
You're like, okay, you did it. So why are you changing it? Like you did what
you had him.
What doesn't work usually.
I can see that most of the time he was just dressed like he was going to the hospital and he had on his like khakis and his button-up shirt and stuff and his tie and like that all like worked for what he was.
Yeah. And I also feel like he is supposed to be somewhat of a cocky guy. This just reminded me of this. Like he's supposed to be some sort of cocky, like he's shit doesn't stink kind of thing. It didn't really come off that way. Everybody hated him for some reason. Like all the other doctors there didn't like him, but they didn't tell you why they didn't like him.
Yeah.
It was because he didn't prescribe medicine to one of his patients that he thought was the better choice. And they're like, you better watch out. We're watching you. And it's like, why though? Like, were they threatened? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you think they were just like threatened by the fact that he might be a better doctor than them eventually? But like, other than that, it was like all of it was insinuation.
Yeah,
you had to just insinuate what was going on. I feel like all the doctors were like, "We hate this guy. We don't want this guy practicing medicine." And then, but you don't know why though. Like,
it would have been nice if they touched on some of that, I guess, and throw out a like how I don't know. That was a great part of the MCU Doctor Strange is like it shows how intelligent he is and how. Yeah. There was that had like the MCU one had such a great character build, and Doctor Strange is one of my favorite MCU movies. Versus like this one was kind of like we just threw him in, and it was the same thing with his magic.
Yeah.
And I read a review of that too. It was a complaint that like basically he doesn't know magic exists, and 5 minutes later he's like fighting off this person who. Yeah, and he's fighting off people who are like very like magic is what they do. They've been alive for centuries, and that's it. And he's just like fighting them off without a problem.
Well, that's
it was nice in the Doctor Strange movies where you see him failing to try to figure out how to make portals and
he's building himself as a character,
books galore and all this.
And he's making himself into what he is. Like he's building himself up from basically wanting to only do this special thing in Kamar-Taj to heal himself, but then realizes a bigger thing. This was basically like I'm just a doctor,
selfish, and then he went on.
I'm just a psychiatrist now. I have powers, kind of thing. And that's what a lot of people complain about in the Rey Star Wars movies, where she like gets a lightsaber, and all of a sudden I know where she can just kick ass with a lightsaber. And everybody's like, wait, it took like Luke Skywalker like training on the ships to like actually, and then she's just like,
she's going over and kicking Kylo Ren's ass. Yes, supposed to be like the big. At this point, he's supposed to be the big.
I mean, we know women are smarter than men, but that's not the answer they were going to give you though. Like we know they probably were better at it. I mean, your daughters are way better at baton twirling than you are, and so there is that aspect that maybe 100%. She can handle. Your daughters probably could handle a lightsaber. Well, I don't want to test that.
I don't
I
know.
don't want to.
Emma runs around the house with a lightsaber and beats her sister with it, so it does
But if it
add
was a
on.
real lightsaber, I feel like you'd be missing some things at your house. Like I feel like
Yeah,
someone's like head would get cut off or something like that. But
they would
my point
chopped up
is that
walls. And,
these
yeah,
people just
True.
automatically just like clicks on people. Like I am pretty fast learner, but not like if someone gave me the
I
ability
don't
to
think
do
I'm that
magic,
fast.
then I'm gonna be
Right,
like, oh cool, I'm gonna save the world right now instantly. And I feel like that was like they showed that in the newer Doctor Strange movie that he progressed and got better at, like you were saying. Whereas this was like, oh cool, we have an hour and a half to tell you this, and he knows everything now.
so
And
yeah, so we're gonna write out him learning anything. This is just done. Problem solved. He says the
ah,
words "I
yes,
accept," and then bang, he knows everything there is.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it is magic,
exactly.
I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so the other thing about it is like we're talking about this and like we pick it apart, and it's hard to pick apart these things compared to like if we were to watch the 1978 Superman, because
It has
1978 was
this has a
made for
lot
a
of
feature film, it was
forgiving,
supposed to be good, whereas
right?
this is like let's try this, and
Yeah,
that's like where I feel like the line is like Superman was like, no, we're doing this, we need to make money off this is going to help us pay our bills, and this is
right.
more like, is this going to work? We're going to try it. We made it. It might not work. Let's throw it on CBS, see what happens, and
This is
then
a
not go
attempted
any farther with
pilot.
it.
I mean, if it
And so
got
that
picked
that
up,
that's where this difference is between like how good something is versus not how good something. Because if this
yeah.
was in the theaters, it would definitely not be as good as I'm saying it is.
No,
Um,
if this affected a generation and a
yeah,
generation of people are like, "Oh, the Doctor Strange from 1978, it's the best ever," and then you're watching, it's like, really? Like this is, but for being what it was, yeah, I think it has a little like leeway in it, so it's not bad.
it
I'm
still
not telling
surprises me
every,
what
I'm not telling everybody right now you need to go watch 1978 Doctor Strange that neither of us knew existed. Um,
which
but
is
all right,
hard to
so
do
here's
honestly nowadays. I think it's on again. I think it's on YouTube. Um,
yeah,
they had it so in
hard to even find it on Google. Like,
1987 it was it came out in 1987 on VHS, again in
yep.
1995.
Oh, and I
It
saw
came
it
out
did have a Blu-ray release.
2016 had a DVD release and had a limited Blu-ray release in 2022, and that was a special company I think that does like this whole like print to order kind of thing where they like put pre-orders
Okay.
out there, and if you buy it, cool, they print it and they send it to you. But like
I It'd be
going
fascinating to
to
know how many people ordered this on Blu-ray. How many people were like,
yes,
"Oh my god, now the Blu-ray is a the thing. I've got to have this." Because I remember like when I got my Blu-ray player, and I got it pretty early because I've always loved movies,
yeah,
and I was like, "All right, there's certain movies I have to get. I got to check
hmm
off." You know what I mean? Um, who said 1978 Doctor Strange is one they have to own? Like
yeah.
my movie collection isn't complete without this.
So it looks like there's only trailers available on YouTube, so you can't actually see it.
You
But the
can't even
Doctor
watch the actual
Strange,
movie.
I don't think it was available for a little while. It's not available on Amazon, so you can't actually go to Amazon and buy the movie anymore.
Go
Like
find
it's
that VHS copy, folks. Get
yeah.
the VCR out.
I haven't checked the eBay. We were doing that in 1978.
That actually reminds me. So, in comic store here, I just picked up a huge comic collection that had been sitting around for a long time, and I opened up the boxes, and they used VCR like VHS tapes to separate the comics, like the space holder. Like, oh, there isn't enough in this of Fantastic Four, so we stuck a bunch of VCR tapes in it, and I was like, this is the weirdest thing I've ever found. I was really hoping to find something cool. I was like, oh, maybe there's like something cool in here. Like,
No.
I don't know. Like our friend Bob Takic does these
Yeah.
amazing like remarks on the
Yeah.
VHS cases. Now there was nothing cool, and I took them. I'm like, all right, we're on Hammond Street in Bangor here, folks. If you put it out, they will come.
Yeah.
So I put the stack of VHS tapes out on the stairs, and I actually didn't notice them when I came in this morning. I wonder if somebody took those over the weekend. There was like Free Willy 3 that actually still had the little compass in it. My wife came in, Liz came in,
Yeah.
and she was like, "Hey, look, it still has a little free compass thing. How
That's
cool!" And I'm like,
amazing.
there was like a couple Bruce Lee movies and like there's some weird stuff,
That's amazing.
random stuff. I
But I
wonder if
got some
like
of those VHS. It's like I got
somebody
Spawn back
take
here.
those. Oh, Spawn. Wait, all right, is that the animated Spawn or like the
Yeah,
live action?
animated
Okay, the
series
animated
Spawn.
series is excellent. That's
And
great.
so Bob, it's hard to see, but
Oh
Bob
yeah,
Takic did a thing, a remark on that
Spawn
one.
on
And
there.
then,
His Ninja Turtle one's awesome with the canister of
yes.
ooze broken and the glow in the dark ooze running
And
down
then
it.
they did
Oh, nice.
Pennywise on my VHS there too. And I have
Nice.
a stack of VHSs. Like I feel like one of the usually things I do is every convention I go to, I usually throw him some money, and he does one at a convention while he's there, and so on and so forth. He wasn't at Bangor Comic and Toy Con for this past one to get it done, but we'll get it done.
We were Bobless. It was sad.
Yeah, it was sad. It was a sad moment, but
we'll be at Galactic Comics later this month, though.
Yes, he will be. Paul, between $13 and $16 for the DVD, brand new, sealed, on eBay.
I guess.
Here's my question for you. Are you shelling out between $39 and $59 for the Blu-ray?
No. I don't know if I'm shelling out the 13 to 16.
Now you do like
when I was okay, so when I was like adamantly collecting movies and like pre like everything streams, to have for my MCU collection, I probably would have bought this, especially at the time I was scouring like random movie stores that were like closing, or there was a place in downtown that had just like tons, like hundreds and hundreds of movies for sale that they'd gotten from numerous like store closures, and they bought. If I had found this sitting there, I probably would have bought it to put with my MCU collection, because I have I have Elektra, and if I have Elektra on DVD, I might as well have 1978.
This was better than that.
This was better than that. Yes.
Paul, so on March 2nd, someone bought a factory sealed one for $38.99. And on March, where'd it go? February 9th.
Was that because it was known that we were going to review this?
Yeah, exactly. And February 9th, someone paid $34 plus $4 shipping for a Blu-ray. But the DVDs have gone $13, $14, somewhere around there. And here's the deal, people. Like, obviously, I'm a collection. I'm like, if I have issues 1 through 3, I want 4 and 5. If I have trade,
no matter how bad it is, you have to
1, I want trade 2. It fits in a format, it fits in a spot, so on and so forth. That if I was collecting Blu-rays like I used to collect, I used to have all kinds of Blu-rays. Now I'm down to like 4.
I still have a fair.
When I did collect Blu-rays, I would likely have shelled out the $40 for the Blu-ray to make it fit in the spot where everything else was Blu-ray. Now, if I was to buy it, I would just buy the DVD, because let's be honest, this is 1978 made for TV.
Not gonna look better on Blu-ray, folks.
Yes, exactly. So
it's
like
not gonna look better.
No.
The more you can have forgiveness of this, probably the better.
Probably better. Yeah, exactly.
VHS is probably the way to go with this.
Honestly, it's the same thing I'll tell you right now with Spawn, the Spawn movie, not the Spawn animated series, the Spawn movie would be the same thing. And that's what I thought about when that creature, I don't even know what it's called, the thing that was talking to her.
Yeah, it was like the devil. Sort of.
He was, when he was talking, it was like they almost like obscured him. So that reminded me of the Violator in Spawn, where it was like not like it's hard to do. Not the Violator, the
Malbosier.
Yes.
Right.
Sorry,
so
Violator was actually not bad.
No, the Violator doesn't look bad in that.
Wasn't bad for the 1990s that was in,
maybe a month ago, Garrett was here. It was a later evening, and I handed him the remote. I'm like, here, put something on. Pick whatever you want to put on. And he, God knows why, chose the live action Spawn movie. And
have you seen it?
He's watching it. I don't think so. Okay. And he was watching it, and he's like, oh, this isn't so bad. And I'm like, oh boy. And it's another one with like the stretching beyond their means of ability for CGI and stuff, because the scene of him in hell killing all of the other hell spawn that are coming up and fighting, and Malbosier's there, that all looks really, really bad. That looks like a cartoon or video game of its era, kind of. Like, I could see this looking like the way it would have looked playing on a PlayStation 1. Like, it is terrible.
So my plan is at some point we will watch the Spawn movie.
We'll watch Spawn.
I think what I want to do...
I mean, that's another one that took itself seriously. It went to theaters. The whole deal. So that doesn't get 1978 Doctor Strange for getting it.
It doesn't. And I have 2 things to say on that. One is our goal would be to watch that maybe when the new one comes out. He's making a new one.
If that ever happens.
When that happens, that we'd power it up with that around the same time that was getting, so that we'd have like a watch this and then watch that kind of thing.
That,
Second thing is, do you know, fun fact, and we'll talk about it again when we actually review it, who did the animation or CGI for that movie? Like what connection? He did CGI on another movie. Can you name the other movie?
Okay, if I had to guess, because I have no idea, I'm going to throw out a guess. I'm going to say that god-awful Incredible Hulk where he fights the poodle.
No.
Okay.
Jurassic Park.
What?
Yep.
The hell, is there a drastically different budget?
I don't know. So
Jurassic Park, that scared the hell out of me as a kid. Jurassic Park looked real.
So here's the deal.
Real.
The difference is CGI in Jurassic Park is there's like the big T-Rex is actually animatronics, and then
Yeah.
there's CGI for other things and so on and so forth. But like a lot of
I think
the
most of that is
Velociraptors, like certain scenes of the
yeah.
Velociraptors is actually done by, it was done by ILM, which is what's his name from Star Wars, George Lucas's company.
Okay.
But Jurassic Park's team was the one that did that as well. His name is, and I'm trying to figure out what his name is. There's a documentary you can watch on it. It's called Jurassic Punk.
Interesting.
It's the special effects guy from that movie. It's about his life and how he never
I
really got
wonder.
credit for Spaz. His nickname's Spaz, but he never got credit for what he did. So basically, Steve Williams, that's his name. Steve Williams never got really good credit for like Jurassic Park. He did the weird like snake thing on the Abyss. He was the one that did all the work.
Right.
But yet the people, the supervisors of the actual like
Got all the
ILM
credit.
got all the awards. They were on
Gotcha.
stage, they did all that stuff. And it kind of like made his life spiral out of control a little bit because he was like depressed and anxious about the fact that he's doing all this work and not getting any credit for
They
it.
got no credit
And
for
so,
it.
and so I was looking it up. I was like, what else did he do? And he did the special for the CGI on that
Do you
movie.
think so? Like the Jurassic Park, like I'm assuming. I'm not super knowledgeable of how any of this works, but I'm assuming that you had a lot of live sets and then they did CGI tweaking around them versus like that Spawn one, especially that entire scene has got to be green screened. I think the only thing is the actor playing Spawn. Nothing else on any of that was legit. So,
no, and so
that
like
probably did not give it any favors. It didn't help it any. Versus some of the other scenes with Spawn in that movie where he is like in costume and on a set and they did other things that might have helped it. Like
there's a mix
versus that whole entire screen being CGI'd.
Jurassic Park was like three different types of it. They were doing stop motion, they were doing animatronics, and they were doing CGI. And CGI, right. Jurassic Park, that movie was like what set the future of the whole mixed medium CGI in movies. Like they show what we could actually get done because that movie's fantastic.
It's amazing.
And
it still holds up to this day.
And so he was doing that. So he was supposed to have just been hired to do the background animals. So like when they're in the field and they're running through the field and they're like climbing over the trees and you see like the dinosaurs like in the background.
In the back.
That's what they were doing because any sort of imperfections on them or movement imperfections are so far away that it wouldn't have been a big deal. Kind of like in this movie. His name is I just looked it up. Balzaroth was the name of the devil creature in Doctor Strange. Balzaroth. And so that's kind of like it was hidden behind something and like so on and so forth. Like it's not great, so let's hide it in the background. But Spaz,
which was at least smart. It was at least it wasn't forefront. They weren't trying to put this thing up there and like have you look at this straight up. It was hidden.
Well, Malboja and Spawn was like behind some flames, and you're like, okay, that's not hiding it.
And the flames didn't look good either.
No,
like, and the flames looked like they were CGI. Everything looked like a cartoon.
Spaz over the weekend when he was told they were doing this said, no, I can do the T-Rex. I can do the dinosaurs. We can do this now. They just don't believe in us yet. And so he took time and did it all. And when Kathleen Kennedy came over to look at what she was supposed to look at, he had it on a projector playing. And that's how he actually ended up getting the work to do the animation on that movie in 1993. And so, and then he went on. So he did the special effects in The Abyss, The Hunt for Red October, Terminator 2,
which is amazing.
Day. Jurassic Park.
I say that it's amazing of everything I remember.
It is, and they did the whole with his term like walking. And, he did all that. Jurassic Park, The Mask.
The Mask was good. I mean, it was cartoony, but it's supposed to look cartoony.
Jumanji, the Schwarzenegger movie, Eraser, from 1996. I don't know if you remember that world movie.
Yes. Okay, that's the one with the guns that could see through stuff. Yeah.
He and then 1997
the guy from
Spawn.
Elf was in it.
Yes.
The dad from Elf was the villain. Yes.
James Caan.
Yes.
Spawn, and then he was like going through a lot of drugs and alcoholism and all that stuff, and he got back to doing it with more full-on computer graphics, but he didn't actually do the graphics on. He directed it, The Wild from Disney. It was a 2006 animated feature film called The Wild, where it looks like animals that are like loose in New York City.
I don't think I've seen that.
It was made for $80 million and made $102 million. So there's that.
I mean, it made money, but not in the grand scheme of
Kiefer Sutherland was in it. Janine Garofalo, Jim Belushi, William Shatner, Eddie Izzard.
I've never heard of this movie.
Okay. Yeah, it's really weird. I don't know. But so he did all those movies, and you think about like in that there's Spawn, which again, where this is a Doctor Strange movie review, we're talking about Spawn here, but like the
Yeah,
fact that like
we've
looking at
gotten off topic.
the best thing in that movie is the Violator and for the
Yeah,
animation of it, and it's funny like after
the
seeing what
clown
he
looks
did,
great.
when maybe the budgets were probably drastically different. Like that's the
Yeah,
big thing, and I think that's a lot of people don't understand sometimes. Like I can do a specific thing, like I can design something extremely well if I was given 6 months to do it. But if I was given 6 days to do it or 6 hours to do it, things change. And so I think
yeah.
there's a little bit of that too. So like money and time factor into them. And I'm sure the people who are doing the special effects on this Doctor Strange movie weren't like, you have 6 months to do this. They're probably like, oh yeah, here's the final product. We need this, this, and this done. Can you guys do it? And you know, and the Balzaroth guy wasn't even the guy who voiced him wasn't even credited. He was an uncredited person, which
Really?
still baffles me.
It's funny because I didn't necessarily mind him. I thought his voice was well suited for it. It was well cast. Like it was weird and
Yeah.
creepy. Like it worked.
But I think it's mainly because I think they're uncredited because I think there is like a rule in like the Writers Guild and Actors Guilds that like if you only have a certain number of lines or you know so on and so forth, that you actually don't get credited for a role.
That's
You
funny
get
because he
paid a
spoke
check
quite a
and-
bit.
Yeah,
But-
you get like a check, but you don't get like residuals and all that stuff.
All right, interesting.
You know, and the same
I don't
thing
think there
if
were very many residuals from this movie.
someone stars as the movie, and so yeah, so it lists as the stars is Peter Hooten as Doctor Strange, and then right below that is Morgan Le Fay's.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you said, it's
actress.
practically her movie.
Yeah. Dr.
So-
Frank Taylor.
All right, so where are
So
we
it's-
at here? 5-star review. What do you give
6
it?
stars, Paul.
You're gonna
I'm
stay
giving
that
it
rank.
6 stars. I'm giving it 3 stars, honestly.
3 stars.
Well, I'm trying to compare this. So in my comparison to this thing is the one we just did, not just
Right.
the one we just did with
with Punisher.
the Punisher. Punisher was released 20 years later,
Yeah.
right? Because it was 1996.
Right.
No,
No.
89. 10 years
1989.
later. 10 years later.
Right.
And that, like, if this was released in 1989, 89, would this be in the same realm as, like, in a
Right.
sense? So maybe not. Maybe 2.5 stars. I'll go down
Sure.
because now that I'm thinking, because they didn't compare to that. Honestly, I was comparing it to the Generation X, and I think this is gonna be just above Generation X in the quality of what it could have been. The Generation
what they're
X
going
wins
for.
out over me on the sense that I like what the characters are. Like I like X-Men versus Doctor Strange. I'd rather watch X-Men, but like
I mean, that sort
I
of
don't know.
was always my thing too. I've gotten more interested in Doctor Strange. It's funny watching this. Maybe made me want to pick up a Doctor Strange comic. Like,
Yeah.
you go read some more Doctor Strange. It's been a while.
And that's why I think they should always put
so,
these
like-
out there, Paul. This is my
Right.
whole thing. It's like how much worse or better was this than the 1994 Fantastic Four movie? Do you know what I mean? Like in an overall scheme of things, they put this out, but they wouldn't
Yeah.
have put that out. Or put.
Right.
And here's the deal. Yes, maybe putting out what we saw for 1994 Fantastic Four would be but worse than this. Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
However, if you actually said, okay, now let's do some touch-ups, finish the special effects on it, change a
Right.
couple things, throw a few. I mean, the 1994 Fantastic Four movie had $1 million budget. Guarantee you this had a bigger budget.
I'm gonna go.
So
I'm gonna go 2.25. I'm gonna go 2.25 stars.
just go 2 stars. You're fine.
I
It's 2
want to give it a
stars.
little bit better than that, but not a lot. Like I don't feel like this is 2.5.
But I'm saying you can put all these in the
but-
same category. I don't think that
Yeah.
there's like a
Now, if
drastic
you're
difference
gonna dump
between.
them all, if you're gonna dump all of them together, right? You're just pulling them all in.
Which we will do a ranking, I think, at some point.
This might make more sense than Generation X. And it certainly seemed to be a better thought out plot than Fantastic Four.
Yes.
So if you're gonna put them all together, I guess this would probably be the top one in the group.
Punisher will be up there. I think Punisher beats this one.
I
but other
love
than
the
that,
Punisher. Yeah, and then I guess
Then
technically the Punisher wasn't released, right? And we
No.
found out it didn't go to theaters.
you know.
So to me, the Punisher would be much better than
Yes.
this. But
So here's
yeah,
my question:
two-
we watched
2.25.
we watched 2 movies or 2
Yeah.
movies recently. This movie
Right.
and then Generation X. We've watched
Yeah.
3 that were pilots for TV that didn't make it, and that's including Nick Fury, Agent of Shield.
Oh god,
which
it was better
is
than that.
worse than all of these.
Yes.
If you saw more going on, like, so this is back then it would have been like what 22 episodes likely, because that's how like a season of TV back in the 70s and 80s is like 20 episodes. Nowadays
Yeah.
we're getting like nothing's more than like 10 episodes, 8 episodes, but back
Yeah.
then it was like 20 episodes. So say 20 episodes, a half an hour episodes of Generation X,
Mm.
okay, or 20 episodes of Doctor Strange. In the end, I do think that given the time and the ability to span this off over a year, a season, that this would have been better than Generation X, and solely on the fact that I don't know what they would have done for special effects, the entire, like how you make the X-Men movie believable
Right.
and watchable with the budget and the constraints of the abilities of special effects back in the 1990s compared to what they would have been able to do today, and so on and so forth. That they would have probably been able to make this more believable and make Doctor Strange do powers. It's easy to move things from across the room with your mind because they just use this piece of, fishing line and pull it and
drag
stop
it
motion
along.
and
Yeah. There's a lot of options.
trippy
Do it well.
trippy special effects don't have to be clean. No
Yeah.
one says like when you're tripping what you see,
Yeah,
so
he
you
goes-
can make it cheesy.
He goes to the astral plane, and you can have all kinds of weird crap.
And so I just
on.
think that in the
Fine.
end, don't think it would have been as successful to make a believable, watchable, attractive show with Generation X over 20 episodes as you would have been able to just. And even if this was sold as a medical drama with some magic in it, it probably
Right.
would have done better. So in
Yeah.
the end, that's why I think I would potentially say this is equal, if not slightly better in the long term than Generation X, is because I think that if it actually got picked up as a TV show, I would have probably liked this one more. Not maybe the story, but just like the idea that it's more watchable and like people wouldn't be like,
Right.
oh my God. Because a lot of times people just watch it and don't even care what the story's about. They're just like, this is shit because it's ugly looking.
Right.
And so like if you just you're just visually looking at it, not the story, visually looking at it, this probably would be better than in the long run than X-Men or Generation X.
Yeah. No, I can see that. I would agree with that. And the other one it's given me is I really do want to go watch at least a couple episodes of the 1978 Hulk.
Yes.
And see because I really don't remember that very well. I know like the idea that the Hulk was more of like the bad guy, sort of like you're waiting to see him, but he wasn't necessarily good, whatever. So I don't know. I'd be interested. I don't remember what the hell the villains were in it. So yeah,
we could watch the pilot. I mean, we never said we just have to do movies, but I feel like there was there is enough movies. We could throw a TV show pilot in there.
Yeah, I've been throwing a few random movies at you lately.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I was thinking I did respond back to you. I hearted the message, but I was thinking that movie I do think would be kind of cool to do in October because I think we're gonna do 2 or 3 in the same month and do some horror movies.
Yeah.
And so that would be kind of cool.
That's a movie I've never seen. I remember like there being a big poster for it when I was a kid of the Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Yeah.
And this came up completely at random. I was putting the girls to bed and they started talking about like if if fruit attacking you. Because what was this? They watched something on YouTube or something where this person
they watched Sausage Party.
No.
Father of the year over here, people. Father of the year.
This person like makes like a almost like a Muppet out of like fruit.
Okay.
And then does like surgery to it or something. I don't know what they're doing. But they were talking about it. I'm like, oh yeah, there was a movie like that when I was a kid of the Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, and they thought that was funny. And then I was like, I've never seen that. And I know it has like a weird cult following.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it probably sucks.
No, I think it'd be great. And I think the other one I wanted to watch is I would watch the Swamp Thing movie. Is a Swamp Thing.
Yeah. When did that even come out? Is that in the 80s?
I don't remember. Yeah, somewhere around there. And that
late
movie,
70s, early 80s?
because that has the comic book connection, so I thought that would be a good one.
100%.
And we do
we're gonna read Swamp Thing in book club.
There you go. So there you go. So that on that.
There we go.
We did give Generation X just for sake on it. We did give it a 1-star review on here. So this is better by not substantial, but like I said, I think it's part of it is that
the casting for Generation X was strange. This was probably better cast. It was better thought out.
And again, I think that if this
the plot was better thought out to this and really the plot to Generation X.
And we have to rate on what we're given, not what we like. It in my mind, like, okay, if they were to tweak this and said, no, we're going to make a feature film, this would have been leaps and bounds better, I think, than what even was. I think we have to, but it's not that we're doing it. We're not saying hypothetically. We're saying this movie has a standalone.
What it is,
and so in the end, I think that saying 2.5 stars, somewhere around there is not bad because it was not horrendous. But it was not, I don't think I'll regularly watch it, but I could. That's the thing, is if someone was like, I haven't seen that yet, I could put this on. If someone said I haven't seen Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Nick Fury, I would have been like, you can watch that. Go ahead.
Good luck.
Go watch that. Watch that movie on alone. Honestly, the Man Thing movie would be in that category of like, okay, you can go watch that. I don't need to see this again.
This reminded me too of like the old Conan the Barbarian.
Which is on our list.
Yeah, which was weird and hokey and all that. And this fits that. It fits the bill of these movies that was out in that era that are beloved by people. Like people would absolutely love them. And are, the campy and corniness is like appreciated.
Yeah.
And I could sort of see that with this. Like it was well thought out.
Yes. And like I said, it's 1978, them trying to do things that like even today people crap on them for trying to make superhero movies. And so like I can see them trying to make the comic book movie. People didn't like comics then. Like people weren't respectful to people who like comics. No. Now we're gonna make a thing for TV. And so like them taking the guts and the risk to actually do this and make this is pretty cool. Part of it is, that it'd be cool to have, and part of it's just Stan Lee wants his shit on TV, and people were like, okay, Stan, shut up. Well, fine, we'll do this. Just come on, we'll make a movie. Seriously, dude. But yeah, I think 2 stars is up there. And again, this is one of those ones too. If you do want to see it, I'm sorry to say, but you're likely gonna have to go and buy a copy on eBay or try to find it at I don't know, Bull Moose or some sort of yard sale.
Oh, that'd be a fun thing. Check Bull Moose and see if it's in their system somewhere.
I will say,
like every trade-in known to man.
If a 1987 or 1995 VHS tape came across I would probably pay not too much money, but I would probably pay
throw a couple bucks at this.
I'd make some money because you know what? That would be dope one to have Bob do a thing on. Is to do a.
You want a Doctor Strange remark on the 1970s?
I think so.
All right. Cool.
Yeah. Next up for Paul and I is I believe it's Dick Tracy, Betty.
Oh, it is Dick Tracy, isn't it?
Dick Tracy's coming
excited.
out.
I'm really excited to watch that. I'm excited to read the comic.
Yeah, so Dick Tracy's coming up. That will be sometime after my baby is born. I'm still waiting. I was honestly like waiting for I get a phone call in the middle of this and be like,
Well, I was waiting to find out that this was postponed. Yes. I was waiting for that. I finished watching this last night.
So the next episode, as
I was waiting for you to say, "Oh, we got to postpone because."
So this next episode is Rom V, right? So I'm talking to Rom V after you've done with you, and we're going to talk to Rom V about his book Dawn Runner. And the funny thing is this actually that episode actually aired before this one. So this is gonna sound weird. People are like, oh, listen to the Rom V episode. It was great. There's still a possibility that episode doesn't finish because I might get a phone call in the middle of that one. But after that, I have a lot of these scheduled out, Paul, until the end of April or end of March. And so I think up until
rolling the dice, dude.
I think March 27th. So the 6th, the 13th. This is the on the 13th, March 13th. The 6th is Rom V. The 20th is David Boer talking about Ghostbusters, his new Ghostbusters comic book.
Oh, I'm excited.
And then Jesse Lundberg came on to talk about comics, and that'll be on March 27th. And then we'll do Dick Tracy at the beginning of April. And so just had to get through today. If I got through today, we're good until the end of the month.
Yeah,
and so a baby can come anytime. We can figure it out.
Set in.
Yeah.
It's not like my honestly, kids. All of my kids came later too.
Yes. No, and I can't go. The 15th is the last day.
Almost a month after.
This is a possibility. This airs, and 2 days later is the last day that we could have our baby because we're planned on the 15th, if anything. So after the 15th, it's not possible. Yeah, hypothetically, I don't know how the world works, but yeah. And Paul, I was like, you're next. You're like the next one to record after the baby comes out. And I was thinking to myself, like you and I, we could just do it anytime. I'm like, hey, Paul, can you do it tonight at 7:00? We could figure it out. And so that way I was trying to make it safe. So Dick Tracy is next. And then right after that, actually, we'll be talking to Alex Segura and Michael Morisi, who wrote the Dick Tracy comic book that's coming out in April, which is pretty cool at Mad Cave Studios. And then Paul, you ready? You ready for Star Wars?
Oh boy.
Star Wars episodes 4, 5, and 6. At least you're watching the good ones. You know what I mean? Like
Thank God you're not making me watch other ones.
Watch those.
You know what? And I'm gonna try to. I'm gonna try really hard to make this a family thing and have the kids watch it. Because so over the weekend, yesterday, Emmy and I went to the new arcade in Orno and played, and they had a really cool Star Wars game.
Okay.
That you could you sat in it, and it was like a pod. And it had your throttle on one side and your stick on the other. That had like the buttons to fire weapons. And you did actual like scenes from the movies. Like I flew the X-Wing and blew up the Death Star. And M did the one with the Ewoks, and the Ewoks are like chucking rocks at the speeder bikes, and you're on a speeder bike trying to chase down the scout troopers and avoid the ATSTs and stuff. Yeah. And she's like, oh, Dad, this is so cool. I'm like, well, have you ever seen the movie? And she's like, no. I'm like, well, this is a chance. Look, the Ewoks right there. Those are in it, So maybe I could convince the kids to do family nights of family movies, and we watch the Star Wars movies all together.
So my goal would be is that we record them. Like typically we could just do, you and I could go on and do like set aside the morning, wake up, do 9 to 12, and just do bang, 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 and get them all done.
But yeah.
But what I'm actually have done is, we'll talk about this later for scheduling, was the idea of potentially doing 3 weeks in a row of us recording. And that way you could honestly watch, like on a Sunday night, watch episode 4, and then the following Sunday night watch episode 5, and so that you spread them out a little bit, but also that when you go into recording, you're only talking about that movie,
about that
one
one
before it.
No, I think that's a good idea.
So it's up to you. You do what you want, but I think that's gonna be fun. That will come out in May. That will be for our Star Wars month. That will be packed with Star Wars stuff. I got book reviews coming. We're gonna talk to some creators. That'll be a lot of fun. And then I don't know what we're gonna do after that, Paul. I don't know. I think. Oh, actually, if you want to come on for it, you're fine. In June, I think Adam Morissette, the one, the only Adam Morissette, legend. Former co-host of Capes and Tights podcast here. We're probably gonna come on and talk Jaws in June. I love Jaws. We watch that every summer. For the anniversary of Jaws. It's like the 39th anniversary. It's not like a random one. It's a random interesting, but that comes out in June. It came out, Jaws came out June 20th, I think, in 1973. 75. And so we're gonna do that. That's come out June 19th, so like right around the Jaws time. But then after that, I think we're watching Captain America from 1990, buddy. You and me.
Oh God.
But the best thing is that at least the Star Wars movies are like, you might not be a big fan of them, like you aren't big, but they're good. And the same thing with like the Dick Tracy movie, I think is also good, and we'll get into that. At least you have a break between
Star Wars. I don't hate people. Paul hates Star Wars. I don't hate Star Wars.
You don't like Star Wars.
I just don't like it as much as people assume I do.
But it's you don't like I'm pumped for Star Wars month. You're like, cool, you're doing Star Wars month. It's not like that stuff. And so the next crappy movie we're gonna watch is gonna be the Captain America movie. So you got some time. You get to like June to do that.
That is gonna suck. That is gonna suck.
It's gonna be bad. This is gonna be one of those ones where we're less like, this is gonna be on the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. level.
I think so. I would assume. It might. In fact, it might be worse.
It's probably. I mean, we can't go past the half star, so they're all gonna be tied at this point because I don't want to do anything like. I am not giving something a 0. That's not fair. The actors and actresses at least showed up. Okay, they made the movie. You got to give them at least a half a star. Paul's like, I give 0.1 stars. That's it. They get that much of my attention. But Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange.
It's 1978. Buy the DVD on eBay, people.
Give it around. Like I said, if anything else, it made me want to go read some Doctor Strange books.
Yeah, and that's why I think that that's what pisses me off about the 1994 Fantastic Four movie not being released. It's like at least it would get people attention to the Fantastic Four. People would buy comics. People would buy the movies.
I can't believe that isn't
why
like
would you just not release
on
it?
Disney Plus or something? Why not? Why not have a Disney Plus streaming of it? You see the best Doctor Doom that has come out.
Yeah, best costume in any. I mean, honestly, it might be one of the best looking comic accurate villains in all of comic book movies. It might actually be the closest to the actual.
Certainly on the list above some other ones for sure.
I mean, I love Thanos, but I think his head was too small in
Thanos looked too human to me. That was my problem. They humanized him. The eyes.
His butt chin, though.
Yeah.
His wrinkly ball section. Okay, so this has been Doctor Strange. So check out Galactic Comics on galacticcomicsandcollectibles.com. You have Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. 547 Hammond Street in Bangor, Maine. Check out that. That's awesome. We're looking forward to it. We're going to watch Dick Tracy. It's the next movie. So if anybody's listening to this and you want to be ready for it, watch Dick Tracy between now and then. That's an easily accessible movie, unlike some of the other ones we have.
I am super looking forward to it. It's
easier to access. I don't think it's actually on like Amazon. I think you have to you do have to do some research to find it because I think there's some reason behind the Warren Beatty of it all. I don't know the whole.
You gotta try to find Star Wars. I don't even know.
And on top of that, you should just watch the movie anyway because the Dick Tracy comic book is coming out in April as well. So if you just get on top of that, we'll be doing Dick Tracy. We're not doing Dick Tracy month, people. Sorry, it's not gonna happen.
You don't want to read like the
1930s.
What was 1930s, 1940s, like the
comic strips,
and then get together and discuss the potential plot twists in the week to week.
Can you get those collections? Can we just do that for Book Club in April?
They have the hardcovers. They just were promoting them, actually.
Wait, hold on. They're on the same page of releasing a new comic book and promoting older stuff
because it has nothing
to go along
to do
with
it. MCU. It has nothing to do with Marvel.
It's probably not even the same publisher. That's why.
Yeah, no.
It's one's probably like EC, and the other ones are like Dark Horse, and the other one's probably like is Mad Cave. So it's not Mad Cave isn't putting it out. It's probably like Titan Comics or something like that.
The other one's like, oh, let's tag in on this.
Yeah.
This is a chance for us to move some books.
Give that marketing person a raise.
Mind blown.
and take money away from the people that don't do this
Oh
and
my
give it to the
God.
people who do this. It's ridiculous.
Constant
Okay.
frustration.
And rant. But yeah, so check out Doctor Strange.
Check it out. It's
Big 2 stars.
It's
I'm keeping
something.
1 down. 1.5 stars. Half star.
Really?
No, I'm kidding. It's two to 2.5 stars. Because
It's
you did
better
2.25. That makes sense.
It's better than other things we've watched.
I'll
It's definitely
probably put it at 2 stars on our website because the quarter stars don't work correctly in the programming I have in the back end. So it does
All right.
2.3.
All right. I'm still giving it 2.25.
Yes, you can. But I'm probably going to put it at 2. I'd rather go lower than higher.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, if
that's
I'm
fair.
going to say 2, if you average, it's 2.375 between the two of us. It's going to go to 2 because that's just the way it is. But
That's fair.
cool. Okay, Paul. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. And hopefully next time I talk to you, I mean, I'll probably be in Wednesday because let's be honest, she's not coming until the 15th. So my daughter's not coming until then, but we'll see.
Probably not.
If not, you'll hold my comics.
Yeah, maybe.
I went through all my previous catalogs. I have there's 10 quotes and I just didn't see them.
That's insane.
Hunt for the Skinwalker. Boom.
Yep.
That was one on there. I was just
That's
just
awesome,
random.
Awesome
I don't
dude,
know
dude.
if any of them will end up making it onto the actual print copies, but I just was laughing because it's in there and I just never even noticed it. I'm like, oh, cool. Next page. Don't read the quotes. Now I'm gonna be
Another one.
reading the previous catalog now. But cool. I'll see you around, man. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, dude.